The discovery. The research vessel Quantum Seeker hung in the darkness beyond Neptune's orbit, its sleek silver hull barely visible against the cosmic backdrop. Inside the xenobiology lab, Dr. Kalen Vross of the Theshan Collective stared at the holographic display with 4 of his eye stalks while the remaining 2 swiveled nervously. "This cannot be correct," he muttered in the harmonic frequencies of his native tongue, translated instantly by the ship's AI. "Run the scan again, Physician Nyla." The Zenthari medical officer, her crystalline body refracting the lab's blue light into rainbow patterns, manipulated the controls with practiced precision. "The readings are consistent, Doctor. I've run the analysis 17 times." Before them floated the biometric data of Commander Marcus Chin, the human liaison officer assigned to their survey mission. The human stood in the scanning chamber, arms crossed, looking mildly annoyed at the delay. "Everything okay in there?" Marcus's voice crackled through the intercom. "I've got a shift report due in 20 minutes. Kalen's main eye stalk focused on a peculiar pattern in the neural activity chart. For the past 6 cycles, he'd been documenting the bizarre physiological quirk that affected every human aboard the vessel. At first he'd assumed it was a disease. Now he wasn't so sure. "Commander Chin, you may exit," Kalen said. "But I must ask, this state you enter each rotation period, the one you call sleep. Tell me again what happens during this time." Marcus stepped out of the chamber, running a hand through his dark hair. "Sleep? Doc, we've been over this. It's just rest. Our bodies and minds need downtime to recover." "But you become completely unconscious," Nyla interjected, her voice like wind chimes. "For 6 to 8 hours you are vulnerable, unresponsive. Your consciousness disconnects." "Yeah, that's pretty much it." Marcus shrugged. "What? You guys don't sleep?" Kalen's 6 eyes all fixed on the human simultaneously, a gesture of extreme concern in Theshan culture. "Commander, no species in the Galactic Coalition experiences anything remotely similar. We rest, yes. We enter meditative states. But we never lose consciousness. We never become so utterly defenseless." Marcus frowned. "Defenseless? That's a bit dramatic, don't you think?" "Is it?" Nyla's crystalline form pulsed with amber light, her species equivalent of raised eyebrows. "In the wild, on your home planet, what would prevent a predator from killing a sleeping human? Well, we usually sleep in safe places. Plus, we can wake up if—" "But there's a delay," Kalen interrupted, his stalks quivering with excitement. "According to my research, there are phases of this sleep where humans cannot be easily roused, where your response time is significantly diminished." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I don't know what to tell you. Sleep is just part of being human. We've always done it." Kalen turned to his workstation, his 3-fingered hands dancing across the holographic interface. "That's precisely what troubles me, Commander. I've been reviewing the evolutionary data from Earth. Your species spent millions of years evolving alongside apex predators. Creatures with superior strength, speed, and natural weapons. Yet humans somehow survived by being the only major mammalian species that enters complete unconsciousness every single day. Maybe we're just that good at hiding?" Marcus offered weakly. "No." Nyla's voice had lost its musical quality, becoming flat and serious. "Dr. Vross, show him the comparative analysis." The hologram shifted, displaying a 3-dimensional graph. Red markers represented human sleep patterns. Green markers showed the rest cycles of every known sapient species in the galaxy. The difference was staggering. "Every other species maintains at least 60% consciousness during rest periods," Kalen explained. "Humans drop to 0. Complete neural disengagement. It's evolutionary suicide, unless—" "Unless what?" Marcus asked, his casual demeanor finally cracking. Kalen's central eye stalk extended toward the human, focusing intently. "Unless there's a reason. Unless this apparent vulnerability is actually hiding something far more significant." The intercom chirped. "Bridge to Commander Chin. We're approaching the debris field. Your presence is requested." Marcus tapped his comm badge. "On my way." He turned back to the scientist. "Look, I appreciate your curiosity, but sleep is just sleep. There's no big mystery." After the human left, Kalen and Nyla stood in silence for a long moment. "You don't believe him," Nyla said. "It wasn't a question." "I don't believe the evidence," Kalen corrected. "There's something here we're not seeing. Something the humans themselves may not understand." "What do you propose?" Kalen pulled up another file, a classified report he'd obtained through questionable channels. It detailed human combat performance metrics from the recent Krovar border skirmishes. I propose we dig deeper. Because according to this report, human soldiers who have been deprived of sleep for extended periods don't just become tired. They become unstable, dangerous, as if something crucial is breaking down. Nyla moved closer to examine the data. And if they sleep? That's what I intend to find out. Kalen's eyes gleamed with scientific fervor. With the commander's permission, of course. We're going to monitor a human during deep sleep. Not just the body but the brain activity, the neural patterns, everything. The Coalition Council should be informed if... Not yet. Kalen's tone was sharp. Not until we understand what we're looking at. If I'm right, if sleep serves a purpose beyond simple rest, then we need to know what that purpose is before we alarm anyone. Unknown to both of them in the ship's observation deck, Marcus Chin stood at the viewport, staring out at the stars. His reflection in the glass showed a troubled expression. He'd lied to them. Not about the mechanics of sleep, that was all true. But about understanding it. About it being just rest. Because 3 weeks ago, Marcus had experienced something during a nightmare that he couldn't explain. Something that made him wake up screaming with the lights in his quarters blown out and his console screen cracked from across the room. Something that terrified him far more than any alien ever could. As the quantum seeker drifted through the void, its crew remained blissfully unaware that they were about to uncover one of humanity's oldest and most carefully guarded secrets. A secret that explained why humanity had never been conquered. A secret that lived in the darkness behind closed eyes. A secret that was about to change the galaxy forever. The experiment. This is highly irregular, Captain Torvin Shka rumbled, his massive chronar frame barely fitting into the observation room. The bear-like alien's fur rippled with agitation. You want to conduct invasive neural monitoring on a coalition officer without full disclosure? Kalen kept his eyes steady, all 6 of them. Captain, I have Commander Chen's consent for a standard sleep study. The monitoring is non-invasive and poses no health risks. That's not what I asked, Doctor. Shka's amber eyes narrowed. Does he know what you're looking for? How can I tell him what I'm looking for when I don't know myself? Kalen's voice carried a hint of frustration. Captain, in the 3 months since humans joined the coalition, we've cataloged their physiology, their culture, their technology. But we've never properly studied their sleep. Doesn't that seem like an oversight? Physician Nyla chimed in from her workstation, her crystalline body pulsing with calm blue light. The medical literature from Earth describes sleep as restorative, necessary for memory consolidation and cellular repair. Standard functions. Yet the neural patterns I've observed suggest something far more complex. Shka was silent for a moment, his clawed hand drumming against his thigh. There are rumors, he finally said. From the Krovar front. Stories about human soldiers who changed during prolonged combat situations. Kalen's stalks perked up. What kind of changes? The kind that made hardened Krovar shock troopers request transfers. Shka moved to the viewport, his back to them. The kind that ended battles before they began. And they always happened after human forces were deprived of sleep for extended periods. All the more reason to understand. Or to leave well enough alone. Shka turned back, his expression grave. Doctor, I've lived a long life. Long enough to learn that some mysteries carry teeth. The humans have been nothing but exemplary crew members. Perhaps we should be grateful for that and not pry into matters that might complicate things. Before Kalen could respond, the door slid open. Marcus Chen entered, wearing standard-issue sleep monitoring patches on his temples and neck. He looked relaxed, almost amused. Ready when you are, Doc, he said, settling into the specialized bed they'd set up in the center of the lab. Though I should warn you, I'm a pretty boring sleeper. No snoring, no sleep talking. My ex used to complain I was too still. Kalen approached with his medical scanner. Commander, I need to ask you something. In your military service, did you ever experience extended periods without sleep? Marcus's easy expression flickered. Just for a moment, but Kalen caught it. Sure, during pilot training. Standard endurance protocols. His voice was casual, but his heart rate had elevated. The monitors showed it clearly. And what happened during those periods? Same thing that happens to anyone, got tired, performance degraded, needed to sleep. Marcus lay back on the bed, eyes closed. Can we get started? I've got early shift tomorrow. Nyla activated the neural monitoring system. Holographic displays sprang to life around the bed, showing real-time brain activity, hormone levels, and dozens of other metrics. Beginning baseline recording. Commander, just relax and let yourself drift off naturally. Roger that, Marcus murmured. Kalen watched the displays intently. Human sleep, he'd learned, wasn't a simple on-off switch. It progressed through distinct stages, each with characteristic brainwave patterns. Light sleep, then deeper sleep, then the strange phase humans called REM, rapid eye movement, where the brain became almost as active as during waking hours. Fascinating, he whispered as Marcus's breathing began to slow and deepen. Look at the initial transition. The prefrontal cortex activity drops by 40% within minutes. That's the logic and reasoning center, Nyla noted. They're literally shutting down their rational mind. And yet the amygdala remains active, Kalen observed. The emotional processing center. Along with the hippocampus, memory formation. They're not shutting down. They're reorganizing. Minutes passed. Marcus's body relaxed completely, his breathing falling into a steady rhythm. The neural displays showed him entering deeper stages of sleep. Captain Shka moved closer to observe. He looks peaceful. Deceptively so, Kalen replied. Captain, look at this metabolic reading. His body temperature is dropping, heart rate slowing, classic conservation of energy. But his brain? In some regions it's actually consuming more energy than during waking hours. That makes no evolutionary sense, Nyla said. If sleep is about rest and recovery, why would the brain increase its energy consumption? Unless it's doing something, Kalen said slowly. Something that requires significant processing power. They watched in silence as Marcus progressed through the sleep stages. After approximately 90 minutes, something changed. His eyes began moving rapidly beneath his closed lids. His fingers twitched. The neural displays exploded with activity. REM sleep, Kalen announced. This is what I wanted to see. The holographic brain model showed cascade of activation patterns unlike anything in coalition medical literature. Multiple regions firing in complex synchronization. Neurotransmitter levels fluctuating wildly. And something else, something that made Kalen's primary heart skip a beat. Nyla, are you seeing this? The temporal parietal junction, she confirmed, her voice tight. It's showing activity that shouldn't be possible outside of deep meditation or active psychic interface. Shka leaned in. What does that mean? It means, Kalen said carefully, that the human brain during REM sleep is accessing cognitive functions we associate with species that have natural psionic abilities. Except humans aren't supposed to be psionic. Marcus's body suddenly tensed. His hands clenched the bed sheets. The neural activity spiked even higher. He's dreaming, Nyla said. The recordings from the visual cortex suggest complex imagery. A dream scenario playing out. Can we see what he's dreaming? Shka asked. No, the technology doesn't exist to. Nyla stopped. Wait. Doctor, look at the electromagnetic readings. Kalen's eyes widened. A faint field had formed around Marcus's head. Nothing dangerous, barely measurable, but unmistakably there. And it was pulsing in rhythm with his eye movements. That's not possible, he breathed. Humans don't generate external EM fields. Their biology doesn't support it. The field strengthened. The lights in the lab flickered. Kalen, Nyla said urgently. His neural activity is still climbing. I'm reading patterns similar to. Marcus jerked violently. His eyes snapped open, but they weren't focused. They stared at nothing, or perhaps at something only he could see. His mouth moved, forming words in a voice that seemed to come from somewhere deep and primal. They're coming. Through the dark. Through the spaces between. The temperature in the lab dropped 5 degrees in seconds. Frost formed on the nearest instruments. Commander Chen. Shka called out. Can you hear me? But Marcus wasn't hearing anything. His body arched off the bed, suspended by nothing visible. The EM field around him intensified until the monitoring equipment began to short out. Sparks flew from several consoles. Kalen reached for the emergency wake protocol, but Nyla grabbed his arm. Don't. If you forcibly wake him during this state, we don't know what might happen. What is happening? Shka demanded, backing toward the door. Marcus's voice came again, layered now as if multiple versions of him were speaking simultaneously. The gate opens. The old ones remember. We remember. We always remember. Then as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The EM field collapsed. The temperature returned to normal. Marcus slumped back onto the bed, breathing heavily but peacefully. The neural displays showed him transitioning into a quieter sleep phase. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Finally, Kalen checked the monitors with shaking hands. He's fine. Heart rate elevated but normalizing. Brain activity returning to standard REM patterns. It's as if nothing happened. Nothing happened? Shka's voice was strained. Doctor, I just watched a human being levitate while speaking in tongues and generating an energy field that physics says shouldn't exist. He was dreaming, Nyla whispered. Just dreaming. And that's what happened. Kalen began reviewing the recorded data frantically. We need to analyze this. Every second of it. Because what we just witnessed was terrifying, Shka finished. Doctor, I'm ordering you to stop this experiment and wake him immediately. No. Kalen's stalks flared. Captain, don't you understand? We've just seen evidence that human sleep isn't just rest. It's access to something. Whether it's some latent psionic ability, some quantum consciousness effect, or something else entirely, we need to. The intercom crackled to life. Bridge to Captain Shka. We've got a situation. Shka moved to the comm panel. What kind of situation? Long-range sensors just picked up a distress signal. Human vessel under attack by unknown hostiles. They're requesting immediate assistance. Plot an intercept course. I'll be right there. Shka turned back to Kalen. Monitor him until he wakes naturally. Then we're having a very serious conversation about what we do with this information. After the captain left, Kalen and Nyla stood in the dimly lit lab, watching Marcus Chen sleep peacefully. What have we discovered? Nyla asked quietly. I don't know, Kalen admitted. But I think we've just found the answer to how humanity survived its own evolution. And why they might be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. On the bed, Marcus Chen dreamed of dark places and ancient things. And in the depths of his unconscious mind, something looked back. Something that had always been there. Something that was starting to wake up. The revelation. The distress signal led the quantum seeker to a scene of devastation. The human cargo vessel Fortune's Echo hung dead in space, hull breached in multiple locations, life support failing. Surrounding it were 3 sleek vessels bearing no identification markers. Pirates or raiders, operating in the lawless zones between coalition territory and the frontier. They're still attacking, reported Lieutenant Vesh, the Kentari navigation officer. Her antennae quivered with agitation. Targeting the life pod base. They're trying to prevent survivors from escaping. Captain Shka's fur bristled. Charge weapons. Hail those vessels and order them to stand down. Captain, Vesh continued, they're not responding. And there's something else. I'm detecting 23 human life signs aboard the Fortune's Echo, but only 7 are in the sections with intact life support. The rest are dying, Shka finished grimly. He turned to his tactical officer. How long until we're in weapons range? 4 minutes at maximum thrust. They don't have 4 minutes. A new voice cut through the bridge chatter. Marcus Chin strode from the lift, still wearing the monitoring patches from his sleep study, his face set in hard lines. Captain, request permission to take a shuttle and... Denied. Commander, you're not even on duty, and I'm not sending a single shuttle against 3 armed vessels. Those are my people dying out there. And I have a responsibility to my entire crew, which includes you. Shka's tone was firm but not unkind. We'll get there as fast as we can. Marcus stared at the view screen, his jaw clenched. The Fortune's Echo took another hit, explosions blossoming along its spine. His hands gripped the railing so tightly his knuckles went white. Behind him, Dr. Kalen watched with all 6 eyes. The human's biometric readings were spiking on his medical tricorder. Heart rate at 130. Adrenaline levels through the roof. But there was something else. A faint electromagnetic signature building around the human's head. The same signature they detected during his REM sleep. Commander, Kalen said quietly, perhaps you should return to the medical bay. I'm fine, Marcus growled. He wasn't fine. Kalen could see it in the readings. Whatever had activated during Marcus's dream state was trying to activate now, triggered by extreme stress and emotional turmoil. Captain, the raiders are breaking off. Vesh announced. They're fleeing. All 3 vessels executing emergency jumps to hyperspace. Why? Shka leaned forward. We're not even in weapons range yet. Unknown, sir. But they departed with such haste they didn't even form a proper formation. It was almost like they were scared, Marcus finished. His voice had changed, dropping an octave. The EM signature around him intensified. Kalen stepped closer. Commander Chin, I need you to come with me. Now. Marcus turned to face him and Kalen's multiple hearts skipped in unison. The human's eyes weren't quite right. They were darker, pupils dilated beyond what the lighting conditions would explain. And behind them, something ancient looked out. How many? Marcus asked, his voice still wrong, layered, harmonized. How many what? Kalen asked carefully. How many of my crew are still alive on that ship? 7, Vesh reported nervously. Sir, is the commander all right? Marcus closed his eyes. Took a breath. When he opened them again they were normal. The EM field dissipated. I'm fine. Captain, request permission to lead the rescue team. Shka studied him for a long moment. Granted. But Dr. Kalen goes with you. The shuttle bay of the Fortune's Echo was a nightmare of twisted metal and emergency lighting. Marcus's rescue team moved through the wreckage with practiced efficiency. 3 humans from the Quantum Seeker, 2 Zen-3 medics, and Dr. Kalen, who insisted on accompanying them despite his lack of rescue training. They found the first survivors in a sealed cargo hold, 3 humans huddled together in environmental suits. One was injured, bleeding from a head wound. The Zen-3 medics immediately began treatment. There are 4 more, the injured woman gasped. Engineering section. They sealed themselves in when the raiders boarded. Boarded? Marcus's expression hardened. They came on board? Tried to steal our cargo. We fought back. She gestured at the destruction. They started venting compartments. Killing anyone who resisted. Marcus's jaw set. Kalen, get these 3 back to the shuttle. The rest of you with me. As they moved deeper into the damaged vessel, Kalen stayed close to Marcus, his medical scanner active. The human's readings were abnormal again, stress response pushed to the maximum, but something more. The EM field was returning, faint but building. Commander, Kalen said quietly, you need to regulate your emotional state. I'm seeing physiological markers that concern me. I'm fine, Marcus repeated, but his voice carried that layered quality again. They reached engineering to find the door sealed and pockmarked with blast marks. Someone had tried hard to break through. This is Commander Chen of the coalition ship Quantum Seeker. If anyone can hear me, help is here. A voice crackled through the comm system. Commander? Thank God. We're running out of air in here. The controls are fused, we can't open it from our side. Marcus examined the door mechanism. We'll need cutting torches. It'll take 20 minutes, one of the other rescuers finished. Maybe longer. They have 8 minutes of air left, Kalen said, checking his scanner. Marcus stood very still. Everyone stepped back. Commander, what are you? Step back. The voice was that layered thing again. The EM field bloomed around him, visible now as a faint distortion in the air. Kalen watched in fascination and horror as Marcus placed both hands on the sealed door. The human's neural activity was spiking, readings similar to what they'd recorded during REM sleep, but amplified, focused outward instead of inward. What are you doing? Kalen breathed. Something I haven't done while awake, Marcus said. Something we all can do but only access during sleep. Except right now, I'm angry enough and scared enough that the barriers are thin. What barriers? Between conscious and unconscious. Between what we think we are and what we really are. Marcus's eyes had gone dark again. Humans evolved alongside apex predators, Doctor. We survived by becoming something they feared more than we feared them. We just forgot how to do it while awake. The metal of the door began to groan. Not from heat or physical force but from something else. Something that operated on a level Kalen's instruments couldn't fully measure. The molecular bonds of the metal were simply coming undone. Not violently but completely. The door didn't melt or tear, it ceased to exist as a solid barrier. Marcus pulled the remnants aside, revealing 4 stunned humans on the other side. Everyone out, he ordered in his normal voice, the EM field collapsing. Let's go home. Back aboard the Quantum Seeker, in Captain Shka's ready room, the tension was thick enough to cut. Explain, Shka said flatly. Marcus sat across from him, looking exhausted. Kalen stood to one side, his medical scanner still recording. Physician Nyla was present via hologram, having reviewed all the data from the rescue mission. It's not easy to explain, Marcus began. Mostly because we don't fully understand it ourselves. Humanity's scientific community has known for decades that something happens during sleep beyond just rest and recovery, but we've never been able to properly study it. Because when you wake someone up to examine it, it's gone. We observed significant psionic activity, Nyla said. Energy manipulation that should be impossible for a species without dedicated biological structures for such abilities. Marcus shook his head. We don't have psionic abilities. Not the way you're thinking. It's not telepathy or telekinesis in the traditional sense. It's accessing a part of consciousness that exists outside normal awareness. Our ancestors called it different things: the spirit world, the collective unconscious, the dream realm. Science has struggled to categorize it because it doesn't follow rules we understand. Yet you used it while awake, Shka observed. To disintegrate a blast door. Desperation, Marcus admitted. And anger. Extreme emotional states can thin the barrier between conscious awareness and that deeper place. But it's dangerous. Without the controls that active during sleep, the paralysis, the buffering, using it while awake risks losing yourself. Becoming untethered from reality. Kalen spoke up. This is why sleep deprivation is so devastating to humans. You're not just missing rest. You're missing the time your consciousness needs to safely interact with this other realm. To discharge accumulated psychic pressure. Basically, yes, Marcus confirmed. Go without sleep too long and the pressure builds until it starts leaking through while you're awake. That's when humans become dangerous. Unpredictable. Reality starts to bend around them because they're unconsciously accessing abilities they can't control. The Krovar stories, Shka said. Human soldiers in prolonged combat situations. They were sleep-deprived. And probably generating effects without realizing it. Making enemies see things that weren't there. Inducing fear through mechanisms that bypassed rational thought. Warping probability in subtle ways that accumulated into what looked like impossible luck. Marcus rubbed his face. It's one reason human military doctrine mandates strict sleep schedules, even in combat zones. Not just for performance but for safety. Our own safety as much as anyone else's. Nyla's hologram flickered. This changes everything we understand about human psychology and physiology. The coalition needs to know. No. Marcus's voice was sharp. With respect, Doctor, they really don't. Humanity has kept this quiet for good reason. We're already viewed with suspicion by some coalition members. If they learned that every human is potentially a reality-bending entity that only stays stable through regular unconsciousness, they'd fear us, Shka finished. More than they already do. They'd quarantine us, Marcus corrected. Keep us out of coalition space. Maybe try to fix us. And they wouldn't understand that this isn't a bug. It's a feature. It's how we survived. It's part of what makes us human. Silence fell over the room. Outside the viewport, stars drifted past, indifferent to the revelation that had just shaken the foundations of xenobiological understanding. Finally, Shka spoke. This information stays between us. For now. But Commander, if what you're telling me is true, then humanity has been sitting on the most significant psionic discovery in galactic history. That won't stay secret forever. I know, Marcus said quietly. But maybe by the time it comes out, the rest of the galaxy will know us well enough to understand that we're not a threat. That we're just people who happen to dream a little more powerfully than anyone else. Kalen wasn't so sure. He'd seen the data. He'd watched Marcus disintegrate solid metal with nothing but will and neurological anomaly. And he'd seen something else in those records. Patterns that suggested the human had been holding back. That what they'd witnessed was just the surface of what was possible. Later, alone in his lab, Kalen pulled up classified files he'd been collecting. Reports from human history. Unexplained phenomena always associated with sleeping or near-death experiences. Saints and shamans. Prophets and madmen. All of them accessing something through that nightly gateway into unconsciousness. And he realized, with a chill that reached all six of his hearts, that humanity hadn't just survived because of this ability. They'd conquered a world with it. A world filled with creatures stronger, faster, and more naturally armed than they were. But none of those creatures could do what a sleeping human could do. None of them could touch that deeper realm where thought became reality and will reshape matter. In the darkness of prehistory, when the first humans learned to control fire and fashion tools, they'd also learned something else. They'd learned to dream with intention. To carry power from the unconscious realm into the waking world. To become, for brief moments, gods in flesh. And they'd never really stopped. They just learned to hide it. Even from themselves. Especially from themselves. Because that was the truly terrifying part. Most humans didn't know what they were capable of. Didn't know that every night they touched infinity. Didn't know that the nightmares that woke them screaming were sometimes glimpses of what their unconscious minds were actually doing. Building. Creating. Reshaping reality in ways both subtle and profound. And if the rest of the galaxy learned that? Kalen looked out at the stars and wondered if humanity was going to become the bridge between the physical universe and something beyond. Or if they were going to tear reality apart trying. He suspected that even the humans didn't know the answer. They just knew they had to keep sleeping. And keep dreaming. And hope that what they dreamed never fully woke up. The consequence. 3 weeks after the Fortune's Echo rescue, the secret began to unravel. It started innocently enough. A research paper published by a Viridian anthropologist named Tessin Mora, titled Anomalous Probability Clusters in Human Combat Records. The paper analyzed statistical data from every recorded engagement involving human military forces over the past 2 years since first contact. The conclusions were impossible to ignore. In 147 separate incidents, human forces had overcome odds that mathematical modeling deemed statistically implausible. Ambushes that should have succeeded failed. Weapons that should have hit missed by microseconds. Commanders made tactical decisions that seemed to demonstrate precognitive awareness of enemy movements. The paper carefully avoided speculation about the mechanism behind these anomalies. But the implication was clear. Something was influencing probability fields around human combatants. The galactic scientific community exploded with responses. Some dismissed the paper as flawed methodology. Others demanded immediate investigation. And a few, those who worked with humans and had noticed peculiarities, began putting pieces together. Within days, the Coalition Science Council formally requested a comprehensive study of human neurobiology, with specific focus on the phenomenon humans called sleep. Dr. Kalen Vross found himself summoned to Praxis Station, the Coalition's central research facility. He'd known this was coming. Had dreaded it, in fact, because he knew what they would find and he feared what they would do with that knowledge. The station's central amphitheater was packed with representatives from 24 species. Kalen stood at the podium, his 6-eye stalks taking in the crowd, while holographic displays showed his research findings. The data is conclusive, he said, his voice translated into multiple languages simultaneously. Human sleep is not analogous to rest states in other species. It is, functionally, a trance state during which the human consciousness interfaces with what can only be described as a quantum-level substrate of reality itself. Murmurs rippled through the audience. A Dravik researcher stood, his scales shifting to an agitated orange. That's impossible. Consciousness cannot directly interact with quantum substrates. The uncertainty principle does not apply in the way we think, Kalen interrupted. Or rather, it applies differently when consciousness is the observer. Human brains during REM sleep generate coherent quantum states across billions of neurons simultaneously. This creates a field effect that can influence probability at the macroscopic level. In simple terms? Asked the Zen3 administrator. In simple terms, when humans dream, they can affect reality. Usually in subtle ways, tiny probability shifts, microscopic energy manipulations. But under stress or with training, some humans can do more. Much more. Physician Nyla materialized as a hologram beside him. We have documented cases of spontaneous psionic manifestation in sleep-deprived humans. Temperature fluctuations. Electronic disruption. In extreme cases, physical matter manipulation. This is why humans are so effective in combat, Kalen continued. Not just their tactics or technology, but because on some level, they're unconsciously bending probability in their favor. Especially if they're well rested. The amphitheater erupted into chaos. Representatives shouting questions. Some demanding humanity be restricted. Others calling for calm. The Dravik researcher's scales had gone full crimson. This explains everything, he shouted. The impossible escapes. The lucky discoveries. They're not better than us, they're manipulating the fundamental structure of reality. That's not fair, Kalen protested. They don't do it consciously. Most humans don't even know. Don't know or won't tell? The Dravik gestured sharply. You've been working closely with their commander Chin. The same human who demonstrably disintegrated a solid blast door with his bare hands. Are you certain you haven't been influenced yourself? That's ridiculous, Kalen snapped back. I'm presenting scientific data, not propaganda. The presiding counselor, an ancient Theshan named Elder Drovan, raised all 8 of his appendages for silence. Enough. Dr. Vross, your findings are disturbing, but we must approach this rationally. The question before us is simple. Does humanity represent a threat to coalition stability? Before Kalen could answer, the amphitheater doors burst open. Marcus Chin strode in, flanked by 2 other humans, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo, commander of the Human Fleet Contingent, and Dr. James Rivera, Earth's chief scientific liaison. With respect, Elder Drovan, Admiral Okonkwo said, her voice carrying military authority, humanity will answer that question ourselves. The amphitheater fell silent. All eyes turned to the 3 humans standing in the aisle. You were not invited to these proceedings, Drovan said carefully. And yet here we are. Admiral Okonkwo moved to stand beside Kalen's podium. We knew this day would come. Knew that eventually someone would notice what makes us different. Dr. Vross here accelerated the timeline, but we're prepared to be transparent. Dr. Rivera activated his own holographic display. For the past 50 years, since before first contact, human scientists have been studying the phenomenon you're now discovering. We call it the Oniroy effect, named after the Greek spirits of dreams. And yes, it's real. The display showed brain scans, quantum field measurements, probability distributions, all stamped with official Earth scientific institutions. We didn't hide this out of malice, Rivera continued. We hid it because we didn't understand it ourselves. And because the few times in history when humans tried to weaponize it, the results were catastrophic. Explain, Drovan commanded. Marcus stepped forward. In 2087, a Black Ops military program tried to train soldiers to consciously access the Oniroy effect. Project Morpheus. 73 test subjects. 61 died or went permanently insane. The remaining 12 had to be kept in medically induced comas for the rest of their lives because when they were conscious, reality became unstable around them. He paused, letting that sink in. We learned that this ability evolved to work during sleep for a reason. It requires the buffering and control mechanisms that only exist in the unconscious state. Try to force it while fully awake and you break something fundamental. In yourself and in the space around you. Yet you used it, the Dravik researcher accused. At the rescue mission. You manipulated matter while conscious. And it took me 3 days to sleep properly afterward, Marcus replied grimly. My dreams were nightmares where I couldn't tell what was real. I woke up twice to find objects in my quarters floating. The medical staff had to sedate me. That's what happens when you force it, you pay a price. Admiral Okonkwo addressed the council directly. Humanity is not hiding a weapon. We're managing a condition. Every human carries this potential, but it only manifests safely during natural sleep cycles. We're not gods. We're just a species that evolved a very strange relationship with consciousness itself. The probability manipulation in combat, Drovan said. How do you explain that? Dr. Rivera pulled up new data. Stress-induced micromanifestations. When humans are in life-threatening situations, the barrier between conscious and unconscious becomes thinner. Not enough to allow full manifestation, but enough for tiny probability shifts. A shot that should hit missing by millimeters. A decision that feels like intuition but is actually brief precognitive awareness. It's not intentional and we can't control it. But you benefit from it, someone in the crowd said. Yes, Admiral Okonkwo admitted. Just as Zenthari benefit from their crystalline biology giving them enhanced data processing. Just as Kronar benefit from their natural strength. Every species has advantages. Ours just happens to be strange and poorly understood. Kalen watched the proceedings with growing respect. The humans weren't denying anything. They were being completely transparent, but also making clear that this wasn't a threat. It was simply what they were. Elder Drovan was silent for a long time, his ancient eyes studying the three humans. Finally he spoke. I am inclined to accept your explanation. However, the coalition must have safeguards. If human sleep deprivation leads to dangerous manifestations, then... We already have protocols, Admiral Okonkwo interrupted. Every human vessel has mandatory rest schedules. Sleep deprivation is treated as a medical emergency. We monitor our people carefully. We've been doing this since before we met you. And if someone weaponizes this ability? Asked a nervous Viridian counselor. If a rogue element tries to recreate your Project Morpheus? Dr. Rivera's expression darkened. Then they'll die screaming and possibly take a chunk of reality with them. The Oniroy effect isn't like traditional psionic abilities. You can't just practice and get better. It's quantum-level reality manipulation tied to consciousness states that evolution spent millions of years balancing. Mess with it and it messes back. We're not asking you to trust that humans will never abuse this, Marcus added. We're asking you to understand that the universe itself prevents that abuse. The built-in safeguards are brutal. This only works safely during sleep because that's the only time our consciousness can handle it. The debate continued for hours. Some counselors remained suspicious. Others were fascinated. But gradually, a consensus emerged. Humanity wasn't a threat to be contained, but they were a phenomenon that needed to be understood. As the session adjourned, Elder Drovan approached the human delegation privately. You have been more forthcoming than I expected. But I must ask, are there other secrets? Other capabilities we should know about? Admiral Okonkwo smiled slightly. Elder, humans barely understand humans. We discover new things about ourselves constantly. But I can promise you this. If we find anything else that might affect coalition security, we'll be transparent about it. See that you are. Droven turned to leave, then paused. One more question. In your mythology, in your stories, humans have always been fascinated by dreams, haven't you? Gods speaking through dreams, prophets receiving visions. Did your ancestors know about the Oniroy effect? Marcus nodded slowly. We think so. Not scientifically but intuitively. Every culture on Earth has stories about the power of dreams. About sleepers who could see the future or change reality or touch other worlds. We always thought they were just stories. But they weren't, Droven said. No. They were warnings. And instructions. Our ancestors were trying to tell us. Respect sleep. Respect dreams. Because that's when we're most powerful and most vulnerable at the same time. As the humans left the station, Kalen caught up with them. Commander Chin, Admiral Dr. Rivera, I want to apologize. I should have consulted with you before presenting my findings. Admiral Okonkwo shook her head. No, Doctor. You did us a favor. Better it came from objective research than looking like we were hiding something. Besides, this was always going to happen. What happens now? Kalen asked. Now? Marcus smiled. Now the galaxy gets used to the idea that humans are weird. But we've been dealing with being weird our whole lives. We'll adapt. So will they. And the research? Into the Oniroy effect. Dr. Rivera's expression became serious. That continues, carefully, under strict ethical guidelines. Because you were right about one thing, Dr. Vross. We don't fully understand what we are yet. And we need to before someone else tries to weaponize it. As Kalen watched the humans depart, he felt a strange mixture of relief and lingering unease. They'd been honest, transparent, cooperative. Everything the coalition valued. But he'd seen the data. Seen what Marcus could do when pushed. And he knew, with scientific certainty, that what they'd witnessed was just a fraction of the potential. Somewhere in the depths of human evolution, in the strange quantum dance between consciousness and reality, something had happened. Some mutation or adaptation or cosmic accident had given humanity the ability to touch the substrate of existence itself. And they did it every single night, in the safety of sleep, never realizing they were brushing against infinity. Kalen wondered what would happen if humanity ever learned to fully control it. To wield it consciously without paying the terrible price. Would they become gods? Or would they break reality itself trying? He suspected that even the humans didn't know. And that uncertainty, more than anything else, was what made them truly terrifying. Because the most dangerous weapon isn't one you can use. It's one you don't fully understand. And humanity was walking around with one inside every sleeping mind. The discovery. 2 months after the Praxis Station revelation, life aboard the Quantum Seeker had settled into a new normal. The crew had adapted to the knowledge that their human colleagues were quantum-level reality manipulators during sleep. Mostly, this manifested as good-natured jokes and careful scheduling to ensure humans got proper rest. But for Dr. Kalen Vross, the questions had only multiplied. He stood in his lab, surrounded by holographic displays showing sleep pattern data from the 17 humans now serving in coalition space. Each one showed the characteristic neural signatures during REM sleep. Each one demonstrated the faint quantum field effects. But there were variations, subtle differences he couldn't explain. You're obsessing, Physician Nyla said, her crystalline form refracting the lab lights. The council accepted the situation. Research is proceeding through proper channels. Why can't you let it go? Kalen manipulated the displays, highlighting specific anomalies. Because something doesn't add up. Look at this. Commander Chen's quantum field strength during REM sleep is nearly twice the human average. Lieutenant Parks shows unusual harmonic patterns. And Ensign Kowalski barely registers at all, despite being perfectly healthy. Individual variation is normal in any biological function. Not like this. Kalen pulled up a new dataset. I've been analyzing human mythology and historical records. Nyla, every human culture has stories about people with special dream abilities. Seers. Prophets, shamans. What if those weren't just stories? What if some humans naturally have stronger connections to the Oniroy effect? That's speculation bordering on fantasy. Is it? Kalen zoomed in on a specific reading. 3 weeks ago, Ensign Kowalski reported nightmares. Vivid, disturbing dreams about a ship malfunction. 2 days later we had a coolant leak in Section 7, exactly where Kowalski dreamed it would occur. Nyla's colors shifted to skeptical amber. Coincidence. Lieutenant Park painted a picture during her off hours. An abstract piece she called The Visitor. 1 week later we encountered that anomalous probe. The pattern in her painting matches the probe's energy signature exactly. Kalen. And Commander Chin. Kalen's voice dropped. 3 nights ago he woke up screaming. Medical logs show he was dreaming about something he described as ancient hunger from between stars. Last night, long-range sensors detected unusual quantum fluctuations in the direction his quarters were facing when he woke. Nyla was quiet for a moment. You think some humans are more sensitive to the Oniroy effect? That they can perceive things through it? I think humanity evolved this ability for a reason beyond just survival. What if it was also for sensing? For knowing things that conventional senses couldn't detect? Before Nyla could respond, the ship's alert klaxon blared. Captain Shka's voice came over the intercom. All senior staff to the bridge immediately. We have an emergency. The bridge was chaos when Kalen arrived. View screens showed a massive spatial anomaly, a tear in spacetime itself, bleeding exotic radiation into normal space. It appeared 17 minutes ago, Lieutenant Vesh reported, her antennae vibrating with stress. No warning. No detectable precursor events. It's growing exponentially. Composition? Captain Shka demanded. Unknown. It's reading as a breach between our dimension and something else. Whatever's on the other side isn't following normal physical laws. Marcus Chin stood at the tactical station, his face pale. I know what this is. Everyone turned to look at him. 3 days ago. My nightmare. The ancient hunger. This is what I saw. His hands trembled slightly on the console. It's coming through. Something from the other side. Something that exists in the space we touch when we dream. Dr. Rivera's voice came over the comm from the science lab. Captain, I'm detecting massive quantum field distortions matching theoretical models of what exists beyond normal spacetime. The realm of pure information and possibility. The substrate layer where the Oniroy effect operates. In simple terms, Dr. Shka growled. In simple terms, a door just opened to the place humans visit when they dream. And something on the other side noticed. The anomaly pulsed. Something emerged. Not a ship, not exactly physical, but a presence. It registered on sensors as a probability storm, a concentration of quantum uncertainty given form and intention. It's moving toward us, Vesh reported. Weapons? Shka asked. How do you shoot at something that isn't entirely real? The tactical officer replied helplessly. Marcus stumbled, grabbing the console for support. Around him, the air shimmered with that familiar EM field. It knows me. It felt me. When I dreamed about it, I touched it, and now it's following that connection. Commander, are you? No, I'm not all right. Marcus's eyes had gone dark. That thing is from the deep place. The layer below dreams. Where thought becomes reality. And it's hungry for consciousness, for awareness. That's what it feeds on. The entity moved closer. As it did, strange effects rippled through the ship. Crew members reported seeing things that weren't there. Instruments gave impossible readings. The lights flickered between colors that shouldn't exist. It's affecting reality around us, Dr. Rivera warned. Introducing quantum uncertainty into macroscopic systems. If it gets much closer, the ship's structural integrity might become probabilistic. Meaning? Shka demanded. Meaning we might cease to exist in any definable way. Kalen watched his instruments in horror. The entity wasn't just approaching, it was resonating with something. He checked his medical scanners and his multiple hearts sank. Captain, it's resonating with Commander Chen's quantum field. It's using him as a beacon. Marcus closed his eyes. It's not just me. Every human in coalition space. We're all dreaming every night, all touching that deeper realm, and we just rang the dinner bell for something that's been waiting there for a very long time. Can we close the breach? Shka asked. Not from our side, Dr. Rivera replied. The physics doesn't work that way. It would have to be closed from within, from the quantum substrate itself. From inside the dream realm, Marcus said quietly. He opened his eyes and they were completely black now, like windows into void. Someone would have to go there consciously. And I'm the only one with a connection to it already active. No, Kalen said immediately. Commander, you said yourself what happens when humans try to access the Oniroi effect while conscious. You'll die or go insane. Probably, Marcus agreed. But if I don't, that thing will consume every conscious mind in coalition space starting with this ship. Not really much of a choice. Admiral Okonkwo's voice crackled over the comm from Earth Command. She'd been monitoring the situation. Commander Chin, this is a direct order. Stand down. We'll find another way. With respect, Admiral, there isn't time. Marcus moved toward the exit. Dr. Vross, I'm going to need your help. And your medical lab. What are you planning? Kalen asked, though he already feared the answer. I'm going to do what Project Morpheus tried and failed to do. I'm going to consciously enter the Oniroi effect. But unlike them, I'm going in with a purpose and a guide. Marcus tapped his temple. This thing already touched my mind. I have a connection to it. I can follow that connection back to the breach and maybe, just maybe, convince it to close the door. Convince it? Shka's fur rippled with agitation. It's a probability storm that feeds on consciousness. It's more than that, Marcus said. I felt it in the dream. It has intent. Intelligence. It's not just hungry, it's curious. It's been alone in the dark for, I don't even know how long. Maybe forever. And then it felt us. Felt humans dreaming. Reaching into its realm every night. It wants to understand what we are. So you're going to have a conversation with an entity from beyond reality? Nyla said flatly. While consciously accessing a quantum state that could kill you. More or less. That's insane. Marcus smiled grimly. Probably. But insanity and genius are pretty close together when you're dealing with dream logic. Dr. Vross, are you going to help me or do I try this alone? Kalen looked at his captain, at the view screen showing the approaching entity, at the human standing before him with darkness in his eyes and madness in his plan. You're going to need monitoring equipment, he finally said. And someone to pull you back if it goes wrong. I'll help. Captain? Marcus looked at Shka. The massive Kronar studied the human for a long moment. I should stop you. This violates about 17 different safety protocols and probably 3 laws of physics. But I've seen what humans can do when they dream. And right now, we need someone who can dream while awake. Shka's amber eyes were sad. Try not to die, Commander. Or break reality. That would be inconvenient. As Marcus and Kalen headed to the medical lab, with the entity drawing ever closer and reality becoming increasingly uncertain around them, one thought echoed through Kalen's mind. They were about to discover what happened when a human consciously entered the realm of dreams. Either they would save everyone, or they would learn why evolution had locked that door in the first place. And in the depths of the approaching entity, something that had existed alone in the dark for eons felt anticipation for the first time. Finally, after endless isolation, something was coming to meet it. Something that could survive in its realm. Something that dreamed. The descent. The medical lab had been transformed into something between a hospital room and a quantum physics experiment. Kalen had set up every monitoring device at his disposal, their readings creating a constellation of holographic displays around the central bed where Marcus lay. Last chance to reconsider, Kalen said, attaching the final neural interface to Marcus's temple. Can't reconsider what was never a good idea to begin with. Marcus tried to smile but it came out strained. His hands were shaking. How long do I have before that thing reaches us? 23 minutes at current approach speed, Dr. Rivera reported from his station. The science officer had joined them remotely, along with Admiral Okonkwo who watched via secure channel from Earth Command. More than enough time to die screaming, Marcus muttered. He looked at Kalen. If I start manifesting dangerous effects, if reality starts breaking down around me, you need to sedate me immediately. Don't hesitate. I won't let you die, Kalen said firmly. That's sweet, Doc, but you might not have a choice. The Morpheus subjects didn't die from the process itself. They died from what they became during it. From what they saw and tried to do. Marcus closed his eyes. Promise me if I start to become something that's not human anymore, you'll stop me. Before Kalen could respond, Physician Nyla entered, carrying a crystalline vial filled with luminescent blue liquid. This is a Zen-3 deep trance inducer. It won't put you to sleep, but it will alter your consciousness toward a dreamlike state while you remain technically awake. It might help bridge the gap. Marcus took the vial, studying it. Will it kill me? Humans have never been tested with it, so possibly. Great. Bottoms up. He drank it in one swallow, then settled back on the bed. How long? The effect was immediate. Marcus's eyes rolled back, then snapped forward, but they were different. Pupils dilated to blackness, the irises swirling with colors that shifted too quickly to identify. The EM field Kalen had detected before bloomed around him, visible now as distortions in the air like heat waves. Neural activity spiking, Kalen reported, trying to keep his voice steady. He's entering a state similar to REM sleep, but wait. He's also showing full conscious awareness. His prefrontal cortex is active. He's awake and dreaming simultaneously. Quantum field strength increasing, Rivera added. He's generating coherent quantum states across his entire neural network. This is beyond anything we recorded during natural sleep. Marcus's body tensed. When he spoke, his voice had that layered quality again, as if multiple versions of him were speaking from different points in probability space. I can see it now. The substrate. The layer underneath reality. It's not a place, it's a state. A condition. Everything that might be, could be, or never was. Pure potential. His eyes tracked something invisible. And the entity, it's so old. So alone. It doesn't have a body. It doesn't have form. It's just consciousness without anchor. Awareness without context. Can you communicate with it? Admiral Okonkwo asked urgently. I'm trying to understand how. It doesn't think in language. It thinks in probability cascades. In quantum superpositions. Every thought it has exists in all possible states until observed. Marcus's hands clenched the bed sheets. It felt humans dreaming. Felt us reaching into its realm every night. And it was fascinated. We're the first consciousness it's encountered in, maybe forever. On the view screen, the entity had halved the distance to the ship. Reality around it buckled and twisted. Some crew members were reporting vivid hallucinations. Others couldn't remember the last few minutes. Space-time itself was becoming uncertain. Commander, Captain Shka's voice came over the comm, we're running out of time. Can you close the breach? Marcus didn't answer. His body had begun to rise off the bed, suspended by nothing visible. The monitoring equipment was going haywire, readings spiking beyond maximum values. He's projecting, Kalen breathed. His consciousness is extending beyond his physical form, reaching into the quantum substrate. Is that safe? Nyla asked. Nothing about this is safe. Marcus's voice came from everywhere and nowhere, no longer confined to his physical mouth. I see it now. Why the breach opened. It wasn't the entity forcing its way through. We called it. Every human in coalition space dreaming every night, touching that deeper realm, we created a pattern. A signal. And this entity, desperate for contact after eons alone, followed it. So how do we close it? Rivera demanded. We don't close it. We never could. The entity has to choose to withdraw. Has to choose isolation again. Marcus's suspended form rotated slowly. And why would it? For the first time in its existence, it's found others. Found us. It doesn't want to hurt anyone, it just wants connection. Understanding. It wants to know what it's like to not be alone. Then what do we do? Admiral Okonkwo's voice was tight with controlled panic. We can't let it merge with our reality. The destabilization alone would. I know. Marcus's layered voice held infinite sadness. Which is why I need to go to it. Not pull it here, go there. Into the quantum substrate fully. Become the connection it's seeking, but in its space, not ours. No. Kalen lunged forward, grabbing Marcus's ankle, the only part of him still within reach. That's suicide. Your consciousness can't survive fully separated from your body. The Morpheus subjects did. For a little while. And they all died or went insane. They went in scared and fighting. Trying to control it. Marcus's black eyes fixed on Kalen. I'm going and accepting. Surrendering. Maybe that makes the difference. Or maybe it just makes you die faster, Shka said bluntly. Commander, I'm ordering you to. Marcus's physical body went completely limp. His consciousness, the part that made him Marcus Chin, simply left. The monitors all flatlined simultaneously. No. Kalen checked frantically for vital signs. There were none. No heartbeat. No breathing. No neural activity. The body on the bed was just meat. But the EM field around it intensified. And on the view screen the entity stopped its approach. Something's happening, Vesh reported from the bridge. The entity is changing. Its quantum signature is splitting. No, not splitting, merging. There's a second consciousness inside it now. Marcus, Admiral Okonkwo whispered. Within the quantum substrate. Marcus existed without existing. Thought without thinking. Was and wasn't simultaneously. The entity was there not as a creature or being, but as an ocean of consciousness, vast, ancient, utterly alien, and desperately lonely. You came, it didn't say, because language was meaningless here. The thought was pure meaning, translated by Marcus's fragmenting human mind into something approximating words. I came, Marcus replied, his own consciousness already beginning to dissolve at the edges. Here, individuality was hard to maintain. Everything wanted to merge, to become probability. What? Because you were hurting my people. Not intentionally, but impact matters more than intent. I seek only connection. Understanding. For so long, alone in the dark. Then felt dreaming minds touching this place. Beautiful. Desperate to know more. Marcus felt the entity's emotions, if they could be called that. It wasn't malicious. It was like a child who'd found someone who might be a friend and grabbed too hard, not understanding fragility. I understand, Marcus sent. But you can't come to our space. Your nature and ours are incompatible. When you try to exist there, you tear reality apart. Then how? How can I know? How can I connect? This was the moment Marcus had been dreading. The choice he'd known he'd have to make since deciding to do this. I can stay here, he offered. In this space. Be your connection to humanity. Experience both realities and share them with you. Be the bridge. The entity's response was immediate joy, and then hesitation. But you are not built for here. Your consciousness requires anchor. Body. Time. Here there is none of those. I know. You would dissolve. Lose yourself. Become part of substrate. Part of me. I know, Marcus repeated. But maybe that's okay. Maybe that's what evolution was building toward all along. Humans who could dream so powerfully they could eventually leave their bodies and exist purely as consciousness. Maybe I'm just doing it earlier than expected. This would be sacrifice. Death of individual self. To save billions of individual selves. To give you the connection you need without destroying my reality. Yes, it's worth it. The entity was silent, or whatever passed for silence in a place without sound. Then there is another way. Aboard the quantum seeker. His body is dying, Kalen said urgently, checking the readings. Brain death in less than 3 minutes without oxygen. Even if his consciousness returns, there won't be anything to return to. The entity is withdrawing. Vesh reported. The breach is closing. But Commander Chin, Shka started. The EM field around Marcus's body suddenly flared brilliant white. Every light in the medical bay exploded. Equipment sparked and died. And Marcus's body convulsed once, violently. Then he gasped, sucking in air like a drowning man breaching the surface. Kalen was on him immediately, checking vitals. Heartbeat returning. Neural activity. He stopped. That's not possible. What? Nyla demanded. His brain. It's showing activity patterns I've never seen. Like he's running 2 operating systems simultaneously. Marcus's eyes opened. They were no longer black. But they weren't quite normal either. There was a depth to them now, a suggestion of vastness behind the human facade. Commander? Admiral Okonkwo's voice was hesitant. Are you? Marcus sat up slowly. When he spoke, his voice was his own, but there was an echo to it, something vast and ancient harmonizing with the human. I'm me. But not just me. The entity, it found a third option. It took part of itself and merged it with me. Not a possession. A symbiosis. I'm human and something else. A hybrid consciousness. That's impossible, Rivera breathed. Welcome to my life lately. Marcus stood, testing his balance. It's still in the substrate, the main portion of it. But a fragment lives in me now. Experiencing reality through human senses, human emotions, human dreams. Learning what it's like to be individual. And you? Shka asked. What do you get from this arrangement? Marcus smiled, and for a moment, Kalen saw infinity in that smile. I get to be the first human to truly understand what we touch every night when we sleep. To consciously navigate the quantum substrate while still human. The entity is teaching me. Showing me what we really are. Which is? Nyla asked carefully. We're probability shapers. Reality artists. Evolution didn't just give us the ability to survive, it gave us the ability to shape existence itself through consciousness. We're not broken or weird. We're the next step. The bridge between physical reality and pure information space. He looked at his hands and they flickered for a moment, existing in multiple probable states before settling back to normal. It's going to take time to control this, to understand it. But the entity is patient. It's been alone for eons. It can wait while I learn. And the other humans? Admiral Okonkwo asked. Are they affected? No. This is unique to me because I made the conscious contact. But Marcus's expression became thoughtful. The entity understands now. Understands we need our dreams, our nightly contact with its realm. It's agreed to be gentle. To let us touch the substrate without risk. To protect that space rather than intrude on ours. It was never the enemy, Dr. Rivera said wonderingly. Just alone and desperate. Yeah. Marcus's voice was soft. I know the feeling. The breach had closed completely. Reality stabilized. The crisis was over. But as Marcus stood in the medical bay, neither fully human nor fully something else, Kalen realized this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. Humanity had just made first contact with something beyond physical reality. And one human had chosen to become the bridge between worlds. The galaxy would never be the same. The awakening. 6 months had passed since Marcus Chen became something more than human. The Coalition Science Council had designated him an unprecedented status. Human Plus, they called it officially. Walking singularity, the rumors whispered. The bridge between was what Marcus called himself on the rare occasions he discussed it. Dr. Kalen Vross stood in his lab aboard the Quantum Seeker, reviewing the latest data. Marcus's hybrid consciousness had stabilized, but the implications were still unfolding. The human, or what remained of him, could now consciously access the quantum substrate without the devastating effects that had killed the Morpheus subjects. He could shape probability, influence reality, and most remarkably, he could teach others. How many now? Physician Nyla asked, materializing as a hologram beside him. 17 humans training under Commander Chen's guidance. Learning to access their natural abilities consciously, safely. With the entity's fragment providing stabilization, they can touch the Oniroy effect while awake without losing themselves. Kalen pulled up a holographic display showing brain scan comparisons. They're becoming something new. Not quite human, not quite something else. A synthesis. The Coalition Council is terrified, Nyla said flatly. 17 reality-manipulating beings? That's a weapons program, Kalen. Whether humanity intends it or not. It's not a weapons program. It's evolution accelerated. Kalen zoomed in on specific neural patterns. Look at this, they're developing new structures in their brains. Quantum biological interfaces that shouldn't exist but do. They're adapting in real time. That's what terrifies the Council. Before Kalen could respond, an alert chimed. Proximity alarm, the ship's AI announced. Unidentified vessel approaching at high velocity. Configuration matches Draxian hegemony design. Kalen and Nyla hurried to the bridge. The Draxians were a militant species, not coalition members, who viewed humanity's entry into galactic politics with suspicion and hostility. Captain Shka was already at his station when they arrived. The Draxian vessel is powering weapons. They're hailing us. On screen, Shka ordered. A Draxian commander appeared, reptilian features set in hostile lines, crested head displaying aggressive coloration. Coalition vessel. You carry the abomination Chin aboard. Surrender him immediately or we open fire. The hell is going on? Marcus's voice came from the lift as he entered the bridge, flanked by 2 of his trainees, Lieutenant Park and Ensign Kowalski. All 3 had that characteristic depth in their eyes now, that suggestion of something vast behind human form. They want you, Shka said grimly. The Draxian commander's crest flared brighter. Your kind are contamination. Reality warpers, dimension breakers. The Draxian hegemony will not stand by while you breed more abominations. Surrender.